Good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, whatever time of the day it is you're listening to this podcast. It's evening here for me. I'm in London still. This is the PorscheCooled Podcast. My name is Michael Barth. Steve is here. Steve is in Sydney. Hi, Steve.
Hello, mate. How you going?
I'm well.
Sorry.
Let's just tell the listeners we had a bit of
you up. As per usual, I've kind of stuffed you around because my daughter is sick again. And it just caused bedlam, but it's okay.
Steve is sick as well, but we're not going to talk about it online. We'll talk about that offline with Steve.
Yeah, you know, it's not something you want to go into.
This is a PorscheCooled Podcast. Like I said, if you haven't been here before, welcome. If you have, welcome back. What's been happening? Today was so hot in London, Steve. I tell you, it was crazy. I had a little walk this afternoon. Tuesday's my worst day of the week for my day job. Due to all these Zoom meetings and all these other things going on and this fast track project, which is just getting insane. So we managed to go out about 6 o'clock tonight. Went for a walk to Greenwich and back, which is near where we are here in Canary Wharf.
It's a long distance, isn't it, Greenwich?
Well, we didn't cross the river. We didn't go underneath. There's a tunnel that goes underneath the river here. It goes across to Greenwich. But we just walk to the point, to the park, to the very end, and then we come back. It's about 9 kilometers, that walk. I do like the walk, though, when you go, or the run. We used to run it. At the moment, I'm just walking it because I don't really have the power to run at the moment. I don't know what's wrong with me. So Natasha's, my wife is, Natasha wants to walk it, so I kind of walk it together with her. But if you go underneath the river, which is kind of cool, you go through this old tunnel that's underneath the Thames, and then you go across to Greenwich, and then you can go up the hill. Did you go to Greenwich when you were in London? Did you visit Greenwich?
I did.
It's pretty, right? It's a nice place.
We certainly didn't walk. Yeah.
It's nice during the day. I think it gets a bit rough in the evenings, but it's nice during the day.
Oh, isn't that a sort of fairly affluent part of town?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's lovely in summer. There's lots of bars and restaurants and,
That was a while ago, but there's a Michelin restaurant, like literally not Michelin starred, but a Michelin restaurant with like bibendum things all over the place.
That's not Greenwich. No, that's not Greenwich. That's
Is that not Greenwich?
No, that's what's her name? That's the guy that just died's restaurant. I used to know his son.
Jeez, okay.
I used to know his son. I can't think of Conran. That's
Terence Conran.
Terence Conran. That's that's in Brompton Road, which is closer to Knightsbridge.
Knightsbridge, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
unless there's one in Greenwich as well, but that's the only one I know of.
No,
I've been to that one.
I'm sure there's only one.
That's the one I know of. Yeah.
My sister took us there when we visited.
Oh, really?
Years and years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good restaurant. That was a very very good restaurant. I've been there once. Right. I think I've been there once.
Is this like talking to Ajmal about Warhorse?
No. If anyone hasn't got a Michelin Man, you should try and find one. I know they're harder to find now. I know Steve's got one. Natasha bought a couple. I didn't actually buy them. My wife bought them. We have a couple back in Sydney. A big one we've had for years. I know Steve's got a really cool one. I remember seeing it at your place that time, Steve.
Yeah, it's like cast iron. It's not a real thing. I think it's a replica, but
Oh, isn't it?
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
I don't know. Natasha bought ours off eBay, but if you don't have a Michelin Man, you should get them. They're the coolest. They're the coolest thing to have in your apartment. I reckon they look really cool, and also they're Michelin, aren't they? And we all like Michelin tires, don't we, Steve? But we're not going to talk about tires this week. We're outdone.
Is this tire free?
We're outdone the tire thing. Okay, let's get into the usual. If you haven't been to PorscheCooled before, like I said, we have an Instagram at PorscheCooled, so go and check that out and give us a follow. And this podcast is put up, and I haven't been saying this recently, but this podcast is also put up on YouTube. It is audio only. Someone asked me why it's not video. One, because the video wouldn't be that attractive with me and Steve sitting here late at night and early in the morning. And two, I am lazy and I don't have any more time to do any more editing or stuff like that. So that's the reason why. Sorry.
I don't think it'd be particularly interesting visually.
No, visually it's not that great. I mean, we can see it now and it's not great. I mean, the way I look today, you don't want to see a video. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, PorscheCooled. PorscheCooled, like I haven't said it actually, but PorscheCooled is where you can support the podcast. You can join PorscheCooled on Patreon. Patreon's like a membership platform. You just go to patreon.com, search PorscheCooled, or you just put in patreon.com/PorscheCooled. You can go over there. You can Become a member from $2 to $10 a month, and it just helps us keep talking. It helps support the podcast. You get a shout out when you join, and you also get 24 hours early access to all episodes. We do have other things planned. They haven't come to fruition yet, but they will eventually. Steve, I just want to get through these things. I'm probably going to have to stop reading out all the Apple ratings and reviews, Steve. I'll do it this week. And I'll just do the title and the person's name. But it's getting to the point where, the listeners have been really, really great at this. We've got another 10 reviews since last week. And I noticed in the US charts in Apple Podcasts, I think it was at 49 today, which is or 49 or 59, which is really high.
That's pretty good.
For the US automotive podcast. It's very, very high. And this is because of the listeners, Steve. This is because of these reviews. It really does make a difference to where you sit, and it really, it really does make a huge difference to new people finding us and listening to the podcast. Cool. But I'll read them out very quickly. First one, best Porsche content bar none. That was from that's Bernard, Ebita 911. Thank you, Bernard from Australia. The number one Porsche the number one Porsche podcast. That's from the effing seat. I like that name. The effing seat. That effing seat from Great Britain. Great info. That's from Sander 30307 US, United States of America. The must listen to podcast for all Porsche enthusiasts. That's from Lethal Gamer 27, Great Britain. Thank you so much. Perfect driving podcast. Mr. Dager. USA, United States of America. Thank you. Epic Work Crew, MD996 from Australia. I know who that is. Thank you so much. My favorite podcast, 100% my favorite podcast. That's from JB9921 on Great Britain. If you're into Porsches, that's the title, MPD1, United States of America. Great Porsche discussion and opinion. A little 911 centric, he says, though, but interesting and engaging conversation around the brand. Are we 911 centric? That's from GVA John in Switzerland. Thank you so much.
I'd say we are.
Last one, Stephen, we'll come back to that. Porsche Delights, because there's something I want to ask you. Porsche Delights, Luke-G and 996, Australia. I think I might know who that is too. Maybe, I'm not sure. So I'd like to say thank you to those 10 people who have given us a review and rating this week. I think we're up to over 110. We're more than 110 reviews now. We're up to, we're on our way to 120 now, I think. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much, guys, for doing that. Steve, I was going to ask you that, right? Because that review says a little 911 centric. And someone said to me a few times, I think it was a comment on YouTube, that all we do is talk about 997s and 996s. I don't think it was someone that maybe didn't listen to the podcast that much, didn't listen to all the episodes. And as you know, that was what Owner Stories was about, right? That was getting people different points of view, different cars, because we don't know about all Porsches. So I wanted to do just ask you, I'm going to get to it eventually.
Is it my fault?
Have you ever during your car journey, and you've owned a lot of cars, did you ever consider buying a front-engined Porsche? 928, 944, 968, 924. No. What else did I leave out? Have you ever considered that?
No, I haven't.
Is there a reason?
Why? You're putting me on the spot a little bit, but yeah, because I guess
that was the
for
idea.
Me, in terms of when I think Porsche, like admittedly, I do think 911. When we sort of, the fact that my wife has a Macan, but we never talk about it. I don't even in my brain when I'm sort of talking to you about things, I kind of go, I own one Porsche and it's a GT3. I don't even think of the Macan as being...
I know, you never think you've got two, do you? You always do that.
It just doesn't equate for me. And some people will very much dislike the fact that I'm being sort of, it's
elitist,
not maliciously dismissive, but it's just the way my brain's geared. I kind of just think of, as Porsches 911. I do think about boxes and Caymans. I do really like them. I have no experience with 968, 924s, other kind of transaxles. It's not because I don't like them or anything like that. And look, not that it's justifying our existence. I guess this kind of podcast has just evolved quite a bit since you just sort of said, hey, it's really hard to talk by yourself. Do I want to kind of help you sort of do it a bit?
You want to make me stop sounding like a crazy person, basically.
Yeah. I think the difficulty in sort of doing this weekly is that I thought, and people can correct us, obviously, that maybe this podcast is a little bit more interesting when we kind of talk about stuff that is personal, a bit more personal experience kind of thing. And as a result of that, I've only ever owned and really driven 911. So it's very hard to kind of talk, with any sort of insight.
Yeah, I agree.
Not authority, because classic disclaimer from us is we're not experts, but even just insight. Like, I don't have any real insight on 924s and 968s because I've never even gotten in one. So for sure we could talk about it, but I'd sort of feel like I'm coming up short and doing it a bit of a disservice. And it's like, I reckon my conversation would last about 5 minutes. So that's possibly why, for me, everything tends to skew a little bit 911-ish. It's because I'm sort of trying to talk about stuff from experience and from that kind of perspective and that sort of insight.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's what makes PorscheCooled interesting. That we are talking about things that, it's easy to talk about things that we know about. And like I said, the owner stories was that thing about, and we've had lots of different cars on owner stories, and I've got a great one.
Yeah, you're doing a great job on that.
And I got a great one coming up next week, and this week I want to talk about Stephen this week as well in a second. And I think that adds that element to it. You know what I mean? We'll touch on, Steve and I are always like, we'll touch on a bit of news, but we don't want to be this thing where we're just reading out news and whatever. We'll talk about certain news things when they interest us, and that's what we do. I
was about to say that too, because I sort of feel like, maybe I'm sort of saying the obvious, but in marketing PR world, generally, like a brand like Porsche will spit out press releases, like everybody can access them. They're in the newsroom sort of thing. And if we were to just talk about what gets released there, we would pretty much be kind of vomiting everything that you can read yourself online. And there's no real insight from us because we'd just be talking about stuff from that and, not from a sort of proper perspective.
Absolutely. And it's a little bit like tech reviews.
That's what journalists are paid to do.
It's a little bit like tech reviews. It's a little bit like the car reviews on YouTube, where and I think it's more apparent in tech reviewers on YouTube, where a camera comes out or a phone comes out. And if you follow like 6 of these people in your feed, it's like every item is about this one item. You just keep seeing the same thing repeated and repeated and repeated. Do you know what I mean?
And they'll talk about the same features and specs, like, of the new phone and everything, yeah.
Yeah, and in the beginning it was kind of interesting. I find that a little bit boring now. I don't even really look at, I look at one person, you know what I mean? MKBH or whatever his name is, Marcus Brownlee, whatever his name is, Marquez. Yep. I listen to him. I like his reviews. But a lot of the other people I skip over. And, and it's kind of annoying how you see all these things coming in your feed. And, I do watch a lot of, I won't call them investments, but I watch a lot of crypto content. I just watch, no, I do. I watch another crypto content now. And the most annoying thing about, the few people that I watch and some that I don't watch is that they just read news out. You're just reading stuff out. You know what I mean? It's like, and I find that very, very, very boring. Anyway,
well, again, my background is advertising, so I kind of know how it works. It's basically veiled advertising, which most people don't really. A lot of people don't really realize. They kind of think that it's.
Are you like Don Draper?
No, I wish. But yeah, like a lot of those sorts of, what people kind of think are independent reviews aren't really reviews.
Yeah, they're not really. We've heard all those things on other podcasts and other journalists talk about that, how people are just, everyone says good things and never want to say anything bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're getting paid inadvertently. Anyway.
Let's go back. Okay, so the front engine thing has never been your thing. So even when you didn't have your first 911 and you thought, I can't stretch it to get that 964 that you were looking at or the one you found, and you could have got at the time a transaxle, a front engine 928, could have got a 928 or a 924 or a 944 turbo or whatever for under 15 grand, 20 grand Australian. That wasn't tempting.
Yep. No, I didn't even think about it. I did not ponder it for a second. Probably didn't really know enough about them to kind of even ponder it. And maybe back in those days, is going to sound really kind of snooty or whatever, but back in those days, whilst it wasn't that easy to kind of get like a 911, it certainly wasn't as hard as it was these days in terms of like the kind of value equation. Getting into your first 911 wasn't sort of that hard for like an ordinary kind of person, where I'd argue that it's you've got to be quite wealthy these days to kind of get into it. So because of that, again, I know like a 94, a 968, et cetera, would have been cheaper and easier to kind of get into. Let's say I didn't have to kind of opt for that because I could afford to kind of get into a 911, and that's sort of, what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows it takes me a long time to do something, but I mean, 2004, 2005, when I was, we were talking about it, and I just bought the Audi. It was brand new. I just bought the Audi van. It was brand new. But, I was looking at, as we know, G50s. You told me to look at G50s, 1988 Carrera. We're looking at them. They were 25 grand or something. Yeah. Even at that point, even though I do like the 928 was always the model that stood out to me because of, someone that I used to work for had one or whatever. And it was always... I always liked the shape of the back, how it looked boat-like, how it sort of came up and the rounded back. Yep. I like the shape of the 928. I think it's a great shape. But it didn't really come into my thought process when I thought, I want a Porsche. What's the cheapest Porsche I can get? It was like, no, I want a 911, and that was the one I wanted at the time. I was looking at the air-cooled, which I should have bought.
Yep.
But yeah, I kind of didn't think about it. In saying that, I did see that one on Instagram. The I don't know what it was actually. Was it a 944 or a 924? The one that James at Porsche Platz RSR Classic had for sale, which was Jim Richards' ex race car.
Oh, yeah.
You see that? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I did.
Like, that'd be a cool one to have if you wanted to do track days. Like, buy one of them for that, which has been set up properly, and do a Targa or a Tasmania with it, or do something like that. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'm going to stumble on this too, but even Porsche did that sort of stuff where for Walter Rall's 70th birthday, they did up his old rally car, and was it 94 or 944? One of the two.
That was really cool, though. I remember seeing the pictures. That was really cool how they did that.
Yeah, I watched the video. So they kind of, all of his old motorsport kind of mates did the car up and surprised him. Well, at least on film, they surprised him with it. That looked pretty cool.
He's such a Porsche legend, isn't he? Let me just talk about Owner's Story, Steve. I don't know whether you've had a chance to listen to it.
I did.
You did? I had a really good chat with Stephen. Stephen's from Sydney. He knows of your car, Steve. He's seen Marco's car. Hopefully when I'm back in Sydney, I can meet up with him. He had a really interesting story. We spoke for a little bit longer. We went for, I think, an hour and 20. It was a slightly longer one, but we had a lot to get through. And I always like to keep it... He
obviously knows his stuff.
Yeah, and he knows what and he had, he's had, what was I going to say? He's obviously has good driving experience. As he said, he lives in Island Pacific. He had we used to call him when I was growing up, a paddock basher. I think Stephen called it a basher. A friend of mine had a paddock basher, which was outside of Wyong, and it was an old, believe it or not, it was an old Tirana. Probably worth a fortune now. And we used to drive it around the paddock, or he used to drive it around the paddock, which was pretty cool. And that was only when I was like 13. But he had a Datsun 1600 rally car, which he owned with a friend, which they rebuilt. They raced it. As Stephen said, that honed his driving skills. And it was the car that he could drive and, throw around and have fun with. His first Porsche was a Macan, but he still went, the community was welcoming. He went to a lot of drives on that car, Cars and Coffee, Autohouse drives, I think, which is really cool. His second one was, I don't want to give away the whole story, but his second one was a 911 SC, a car I think he regrets selling, a black one.
Yep.
And the pictures of it look great on his Instagram, actually. Very, very cool. And then he bought a 996, a 1998 996. I'm starting to think the 98 996s are the ones to buy, by the way. I don't know why. I think they're the lighter weight ones, aren't they? I remember James at Porsche Parts telling me that.
Yeah, a few people have sort of said that. And I think beyond a couple of people that you've spoken to on your owner stories, I've kind of read it a bit. Because Porsche always do that sort of transition thing when a new model kind of comes out. Like, for example, the really, really early 993s had little bits of 964s in it, like the really highly, highly desirable sports seats and stuff like that. So there's a bit of a transition, and I guess there's some kind of good attributes, like the 996s drive by cable instead of wire, isn't it? The really early ones.
I'm not 100% sure. I remember James had he had a white Carrera, and it looked fantastic, and he said it was a really good one. Stevens is a 98.
It had the MO30 sport suspension and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. But Stephen got this 996.1 Cabriolet. It's manual. And he's bringing it back to its former glory in a way. He's fixing things up. He said he doesn't want to put too much money in it. He doesn't want to overcapitalize on it because he still has, I think he wants a, what was that, Carrera 4S? I think he wants a Carrera 4S cab. That's what he really wants. So I think he's sort of hoping, put some money into it, and then hopefully a C4S will come up. And then the really, the part that I like, because I'm a 912 fan, is that 912 that he is having rebuilt in Adelaide, a car he's yet to see. I don't want to give away the whole story. I'm giving away too much, actually. Tangerine, it's not its original color. It's being rebuilt in Adelaide. Basically, this car, you got to listen to this story because it's a great story. This car was a labor of love of a guy in Adelaide. He'd been building this car for 6 years. It's completely changed. It's got great seats. It's got, tartan type seats. It's all been done. The only thing that happened was the engine. There was a problem with the engine. So Stephen he bought it off this guy. This guy sold it to him. And Stephen's getting it fixed in Adelaide. Like I said, he hasn't seen it. Stephen's in Sydney. And he's getting the engine rebuilt by a specialist down there. And I think he said he's getting...
There. I can't imagine doing that, but a fair bit of trust going on there in terms of when you're not in the same city and your car's kind of being, rebuilt, like an engine being rebuilt. But
these people do racing. You heard the story, right?
Yeah.
These people do racing engines, and obviously they're quite, equipped to do the job. But yeah, it's tricky because you can't go and visit it. You can't go and check on it and whatever. But it's a little bit like Stephen, who was on from Jersey in the Channel Islands.
Yeah.
His same thing. He was getting Pril Porsche to do it. Pril Classics, I should say, and he was, far away as well. But I think he was visiting and checking on the engine and stuff like that. So.
I mean, I say that, but then, like, what are you going to do? Like, even if it's Autohouse and you're in Sydney, you're a Sydney sider and Autohouse are kind of building it. It's not like you're going to really go and look at your car every kind of week, even, are you?
Yeah, they get sick of you if you did that. You know what I mean? Just let them get on with it. As long as there's trust there, I think. As long as there's trust there.
Yeah.
But anyway, Stephen's going to make the engine pretty special. I'm not going to say what he's doing, but there is a 915 gearbox in there. It's a 912 hot rod. That's how when he sent me the Instagram, Stephen, he said it was a 912 hot rod that he was building in Adelaide. And it's a great looking car. If you go to the YouTube video with the audio, there's a link in that YouTube video, and it's a link to the site, a site that has lots of images of the car when the previous owner had it, I think. So you should go and check that out because it's a great article about the previous owner, and it's a great story to own. It's a great car to be the next owner of, I think, Steve. You know what I mean? There's a story there. It's got a good story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It looks pretty cool. I bet he can't wait to actually have a look at it, but then get in it and drive it.
Well, he said it was actually not that far away either. I think he was saying it was going to be ready quite soon. I can't remember the date. I think it was only
July, was it?
Yeah, I think it was July, which is actually, it's pretty exciting. So. I said to him, I'm really looking forward to seeing it, that's for sure. If you want to go and follow Stephen, though, I'll just give you his Instagram while we're talking. It's at 66_912_6. So go and check out Stephen and give him a follow. So that's owner's stories for this week. Steve, did you get your third knob? Did we talk about this?
You talking about my health issues?
Yeah. I know you're sick. I'm not talking about that side of it. Did you get your fourth knob, sorry? Fourth or third? I can't remember.
I did not.
Takes a while, does it?
Talk about it. Yeah, I think it's Chris at Latheworks who I looked at him because you kind of sent me a link, that Renlist link, and then I got sort of impulsive and just sort of took the plunge because I think I was having a sort of flat week or whatever. But I started to follow him more and more. He's obviously just like really, really busy. Like it's one American dude that sort of has like lathing, metalwork and machinery, where he kind of fashions like shift rods and all this kind of stuff. He works in stainless and titanium, blah, blah, blah. Sounds a little bit boffiny, but I actually kind of find it quite interesting to kind of look at what he's doing. So,
well, I'm waiting for yours to be delivered. You know that.
Yeah, I thought you might be. Well, I think that's actually smarter because I reckon it's going to be good, but you should sort of see it. Anyway, so I did order it a little while ago. You can pay like a little premium to try to get it expedited, but I'm in no hurry given I've already got 4 others.
Just wait.
But he had been a bit slow. I contacted him and asked him, and he just sort of said he had some issues with kind of material supply. It's like, that's fine, mate. No problem. I'm really not in a hurry.
I'll tell you where I am at with that knob, though, with the shifter. And it's Latheworks, if people don't know what we're talking about. I'm not sure about the shaft length, whether to get it shorter. I think you've gone the right way.
It.
Yeah, I still think you've gone the right way getting it that inch shorter. I think Nick in the UK too, Nick, my friend Nick in the UK and the number one owner stories.
Has he ordered one?
I think he was keen on Stuttgart Classica. I think he might be swayed toward Latheworks. I think he sent me a message saying that. But I think we're all waiting to see yours to see what it's like.
Okay.
But I think it's about, for me, it's when you put it in your car about the height.
Yes.
I just want to know if the height is correct. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Just to recap, I went and measured everything up. I looked at my 911 Outlaw, Joel Konosenko aftermarket one, measured that up. I measured up the factory one, which I've kind of got on there. I've got a sort of carbon shifter, which is standard. By my kind of calculations and judgment, I reckon the standard Latheworks one looks a little bit tall, so I asked him to knock off an inch on it. Then in the course of just sort of waiting and then sort of being served up the odd Instagram post from Chris at Latheworks, I think it was last week or the week before, he posted some stuff where he fashions stuff out of like old exotic wood.
Yeah.
So like if you go on his site, everything is metal, like it's stainless and it's metal, and what I had originally ordered was the black plastic. He calls it copolymer. So I noticed he kind of posted some videos of some old kind of blocks of wood. So what is it? Indian ebony and some other kind of really nice old kind of bits of wood that he fashioned up in a 4-chuck lathe.
But you don't need another wood one, though. The ones you've got are really good. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't buy another wood one, because the ones that
wouldn't I?
From Carbone are fantastic. That Joel did,
Yeah. And so like it's no reflection on the ones from Joel. Like I'm really, really happy with them. They're actually really, really good. I didn't need to order it. As I sort of said, this all kind of came about because I was sitting on my ass, kind of getting a bit bored and whatever. So anyway, I've added a wooden knob to the order.
Have you, Steve?
I have.
What's wrong?
Yes. What's wrong with me?
You don't need another wooden knob.
I know that.
Are they expensive to add the knob? How much is the knob? Wooden one?
No, it was another $100.
Okay, not much. A cup of coffee.
Very expensive coffee. Where's my wife if you're listening?
What did I want? Okay. Go on. Sorry.
I'm waiting for it all.
Okay, cool. I want to see it when you get it, and I'll make a decision. Speaking of parts, I relived the leather part, the sunroof part during the week. I sent a message to our friend in the UK, our leather craftsman, artisan in the UK. I sent him a message. He answered me straight away.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're still going to be in the UK, I'll just change the color for you, because he wanted me to sell it when I got back to. I said to him, look, it's not going to match. It's definitely not going to be right. So I definitely won't be installing it. And then he said he'll make another one for me. Yep. And he said, so you want black stitch. And it's like, no, I want the same color stitch you did all the other parts in, which is like the creamy, color which matches everything else.
Yep.
So then I sent that back to him. Nothing. That was probably almost a week ago. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I do it to myself. I should just let it go and not worry, Steve.
So
but he has offered, and I really do appreciate it.
You've got the sunroof bit?
Yeah, it's here.
Like it's in Sydney, obviously.
Yeah. And I said I just
London?
No, London.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't match the other stitching, the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not. Absolutely not. No,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I don't know what to do.
It actually doesn't match.
No, I'm not saying that.
It's
I'm
charcoal
just
grey
saying I don't
stitching,
know what I
and
would
the
do.
other one is the cream stitching, which is the same on the blades. It doesn't match.
Yep.
I don't want to put it in. I won't fit it. I won't use it. So he said he'll for me to put it on eBay, and then I don't know, he'll refund the money and put it on eBay. It's like, just sounds like a hassle. That's why I thought, I'll just send it back. I'll just tell him that I'm not going to use it, and I'm still in London for a little bit, so maybe I can, maybe he could do something. And he said he would, and then he never responded. So
is that bit a 996 part as well?
yeah, it's a bit of a dodgy part, actually, the light on it. The light, I wouldn't use the light switch part of it. It's worn out. It looks terrible. And it's very shiny.
But
mine's not that shiny.
It fits a 996 as well?
Apparently. I double-checked, actually. I double-checked to make sure it fit the 996 and 997 was the same part, but it is the same part.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
But
I know Marco was talking about he had an interest in
oh, really?
that particular bit as well. Like
If Marco wants it, I'll sell it to Marco.
That's good. Oh, he'll be listening.
Anyway, see what you see. I mean, I have a picture of it. I can send it an image, but it's in London, though. It's here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. GT cars. There's a couple of GT cars happening during the week, Steve. I just want to, I sent this to you, and you probably already seen it. I really liked, I'm not a fan of the new GT3. I'm still, the back of it doesn't, I'm still unsure about the back of it and the wing. It confuses me. I still think on certain angles it looks a bit clunky. I don't think it looks as resolved as the 991 or your 997 to me. But in that color, and I thought it was a flat color, and I looked it up before we came online. There's a...
Oh, is it not flat?
No, there's an image doing around Instagram, and it's not just one person. I think it's been delivered to two separate dealers. It's a PTS, a 992 GT3. It's in grey, and I'm gonna make a mess of this name like I did last week with the other one, which I'm not going to pronounce now because I can't remember how to pronounce that. The place in the UK, and people were telling me how badly I said it.
Bicester.
Yeah, Bicester. Yeah, Bicester. Bicester.
I have no idea.
Huh? You have no idea?
I've got no idea. Is
I
that
don't
how you
even,
say it?
hang on. Simon Jessup, who I speak to on Instagram, Simon's a good guy. He actually offered to... he sent me a message a couple of weeks ago. Simon's a photographer in the UK. If you haven't followed Simon, you should go to his Instagram, Simon Jessup. I'm going to tell people what it is. And apparently, I did make a mess of it. It's Bista. It's Bista. It's not Bicester. It's Bista. And that's where the Luftkult was held. So imagine saying Luftkult and Bista a couple of years ago. So it's actually Bista.
Yeah, right.
But Simon reached out to me I think it was the beginning of June, and he was going to pick me up, and because he had a 993 Carrera 4S in violet blue metallic, and he was doing a photo shoot, and he sent me a message saying would I'd like to come along to it, which was really nice of him. It was on the bank holiday, but yeah, I think so. Well, he's a photographer. He does all the photography for Rint vehicle design.
Yeah, right.
Simon, I hope you don't mind me talking about you, but I like your photography. It's very, very cool. So check out his Instagram and give him a follow. But anyway, I'm getting off the point. The color of this GT3 is called Grigio Telesto Metallic. I think that's pretty close. Grigio Telesto Metallic.
Color?
Huh? It sounds like a Ferrari color. That's what I mean. Yeah. So this is what I was going to get to. Usually the PTS colors are fashion gray. What's another grey, Steve? I can't even think of one. Fashion grey is the first one that comes to mind of the old colours.
Stone grey.
Stone grey, that's right. Yeah.
Which is a little bit sort of warmer.
Well, this one's called Grigio Telesto Metallic. It's a pretty nice colour. I thought it was flat. They're calling it metallic, so I'm guessing it's metallic. But I think for me, that's the best color I've seen in the new GT3. You said you liked the silver though, didn't you?
Yeah, I think so I think we're going to be on the same. And look, we're just talking aesthetics at the moment. I'm similar to you in terms of I'm very unsure. Like I'm sure I wouldn't be complaining if I had one, but from a distance, I kind of look at the new 992 and go, it's just might be a little bit too over the top. And I don't like the front. I don't like the nostrils and all that sort of stuff in the air vents in the bonnet, the front bonnet lid and all that sort of stuff. But my favorite color of all the ones that I've seen is elitist metallic, which I think that was like the second one that appeared online when Preuninger was obviously starting to kind of just slowly, sneakily release, all these kind of PTS GT3s. But that was that Lambo. It's a Lambo silver. It's a sort of silvery
So what are
blue.
all these colors? They're Ferrari colors and Lamborghini colors? It's very odd, isn't it?
Well, I guess that's the point to PTS. Like you can, paint it the color of your skin if you want it.
But didn't they have to approve it? I thought Porsche was a little bit more particular. Oh, no, you can't have it in that color. They would actually say no if they didn't want you to.
True. I've been following it, and like on our little notes thing, every time I sort of see a different color. Like I've seen Shark Blue, Speed Yellow, Guards Red, this Azuro, Thetis Metallic, Mint Green and Ruby Stone, Olive Green.
The Speed Yellow didn't look too bad though, Steve. The Speed Yellow looked all right, I thought.
Crayon,
it's a lot of yellow.
Yeah. Even Carrara White as well, like which is the same as my 997. But I reckon it just looks better in the sort of slightly more subdued, sophisticated kind of colors as opposed to like the really loud, shark blues and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, which is a bit weird. I agree, actually. I agree. I think you're right.
I don't know why. It just doesn't lend itself right.
Yeah. I mean, this grey one was the first one I've seen that I thought, okay, that looks, I don't mind how that looks, especially when it had the yellow calipers. It's got the, ceramics and yellow detailed stitching in it. The grey and the yellow is always nice together. I like that.
Yeah.
And then there's the GT4 RS, that spy shots of the GT4 RS. I've gone off the GT4. I don't know why. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that, but I've gone off it a little bit. I don't know if I would bother. It's got hood vents, which you hate, the nostrils as you call them. It's got the big wing.
No, the knucker ducts. Is it more like the knucker ducts from the GT3 RS?
I think so.
Those things I like. The other ones I don't like.
Oh, the other ones you don't like. Okay, which are down lower, aren't they?
Yeah, more at the leading edge.
I would pass. I think, I don't know how much sort of money it would be, what sort of money. I'd rather get a 901.1 GT3 or a 0.2 GT3, or even if they're probably a lot more expensive though, aren't they? I don't know what a GT4 RS would be, or even a 0.1 GT3 RS. You know what I mean? I think I don't know. For me, I think I'd just rather get that. I don't think I'd bother with the GT4. And I know that I've got someone, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, because I know there's someone that's reached out to me in Brisbane who's just bought a GT4, and I like that first generation. I did like the first generation, and I do like the 4.0, but I don't think. What am I trying to say? I don't think I get an RS in a GT4. That's what I'm trying to say. I think the GT4, okay, that's okay. I don't think I'd put the extra money in to get an RS. I think I'd get a 911.
Yeah, I think. I reckon it'll be an unbelievable car, and it'll be interesting to sort of see if like they ever just let it off the leash and don't hold it back in terms of worrying that it's going to outperform a 911. So like, will the RS model just be as good as that platform possibly can be? And if so, like, how unbelievably good is it going to be?
Well, I wonder, is it going to be available in manual? Or is it only going to be available in PDK because it's an RS, like the 911?
RS will be PDK because RS is sort of like the track car, and the best track times come with a PDK.
But the common criticism of the GT4, the new model, is the gearing, right? And the previous one, the long gearing. The gearing. What is it? 80 kilometers or 80 miles in first gear or whatever it is, some ridiculous amount of, what is it? I can't remember what it was.
Yep.
Don't you think there's an opportunity for them, if they did have the manual in the RS, if it's possible that they improve that gearing, and that gives it then that competitive edge over the GT4 that people will search it out because it has got the better gearing.
But the gearing is independent of whether it's a PDK or a manual. If you look at Smoking Tyres' latest one take, Matt Farah took out a PDK GT4, the 4-litre. And that was the first thing that he addressed. He sort of said, everybody's sort of wondering because the PDK has 7 gears, not 6. So, yes, they're stacked slightly shorter, but he said it's not short enough to kind of make a proper difference. So it doesn't necessarily... You're still driving around in second and third, pretty much.
Oh, okay. I've been thinking, right, because, I'm well, not in the near future, but near enough future, I'm going to be going back to Sydney almost after 2 years. Actually, after 2 years, we went back for Christmas. We actually left Sydney in June 2019, and then we were gone for 6 months. We came back for a few weeks over Christmas, and then we left in January, and I haven't been back since. Believe it or not, that's how long it's been. When I was there, I'm talking about services here if people are wondering what I'm getting into. The yearly service, before I left, I usually get my service done on my car, Steve, as you know. Usually I get it done in January, but this time I was impatient and I got it done in December because I'd been away for 6 months, which was the longest I'd ever been away for in 2019. Sure. So December 2019, I had my service done. I think, and my memory's fading, I don't know. I think it was the major. I think it was a major. I'm not 100% sure. Let's just say it's a major for the sake of this, but I'm pretty sure it was. So, I usually get it done every year. I normally get it done in January. Like I said, I got it done in December because I wanted to drive it over Christmas and I wanted to have a fresh service because it'd been sitting for 6 months. So the last service it had was December 2019. Now that worries me a little bit because I'm a stickler for details and things in books and stuff.
Yep.
So the next service, I'm probably going to be back in Sydney and out of quarantine by, say, the end of October.
Yep.
So the end of October, when I get my license again and I can drive, because my Australian license has expired a year ago.
Couldn't you renew that online? Anyway, sorry.
No, I can't. I tried. Oh, okay. You believe that?
Yeah, right.
Apparently they say you can, and then I tried to do it and I can't. Maybe because it's already run out.
Right, okay.
It's so annoying. When I was back in Sydney, I forgot. It actually ran out it literally ran out in the February after we left Sydney.
Yeah, right.
I don't even, and I was killing myself in Bahrain. I was like, I can't remember. I forgot to renew my license.
Yeah, oops. Anyway.
So I'll get my license, we'll be out of quarantine. So I'm thinking in November, first week in November,
Yep.
I'm going to take it to Autohouse and I'm going to start to get the work done on the car. And obviously the first thing I want to get done is the service. And I think it's a annual service, which is just the oil change, right? It's not the minor, it's the annual service or whatever they call it. So it's the oil change service. So obviously that's really important, Steve, because the car's been sitting for so long.
Yep.
I will tell them that they will know it's been sitting for that long, and if they want to do any other checks at that time. But what I was thinking is I don't want to, I don't know what you think. I don't really want to merge those two services into one. So, the service was due in, say, January 2021. I'm actually doing it in November. The next service would be due in January 2022. Now, I know some people probably just do the service all together. What I wanted to do was... Huh?
Yeah, do it all together.
No, because what I was wanting to do... hear me out. This is...
Yeah, there you go.
Because there's other maintenance work to do on the car, right?
Sure.
So my steering rack has to be fixed. That has to be done, reconditioned.
Yep.
I just thought, if I do this gets 2 stamps in the book, right? So it gets 2 stamps in your service book. I don't know whether this means anything.
About that, but
you wouldn't worry about it?
Yep. No.
Okay. This is why I wanted to talk about it, because I'm confused. I get confused about these things. I was going to do the service in November, oil change, get them to check stuff, whatever, because it hasn't been driven. And then in January, maybe I'll push it to February. Then I'll get the next service done, which is the minor service. And then at that point, I might change all my brake pads and everything because they haven't completely gone and they don't have the warning buzzer. But I want to change all my brakes because I know they're on their last legs.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So that was what I was doing. So I wasn't sure whether I should tell them to do it all at once or spread it out. Also spreads the cost out too. This is the other thing I'm thinking about. It gives me a couple of months a month in between, or a couple of months in between, just to get the money back in so I can pay it out again.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
What would you do?
But in terms of worrying about, because I'm assuming that what you're getting at is that over a 2-year period, you're only kind of getting one service.
Yes.
I don't think that necessarily kind of matters, because even okay, if your car's under warranty, pretend it's a new kind of 992. Yes, like I don't know what the actual service intervals, but call it 20,000 K in every 12 months. Whichever comes first is the kind of key to that. So even if you don't drive your car, then 12 months, you're supposed to kind of get your car sort of serviced every 12 months. But in your particular instance, you're not talking about a warranty anymore or anything like that. If you're talking about sort of just being a really good custodian of your car, and, you know, when you sort of sell this thing for your GT3, what will the next owner kind of think? If you just explain, and it probably would be documented because your mileage will be there. Like you won't have run any miles between the two stamps.
It'll be the same mileage, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say to you. Does that probably weighs up? That covers the difference, doesn't it? It's the fact that they'll see that the dump was done in January. It was done in December 2019, and when it gets done again in November, it's probably 200 kilometers, maybe max.
Yep. Yeah. Look, you know, and if you're just kind of building that little sort of file, because your car is an immaculate sort of example of a 997, a Carrera, base Carrera kind of thing, and you're just trying to get it all lined up, so, you know, it's just all kind of there in terms of the history. Yes, it'll be there in terms of the kind of mileage numbers. You could even ask AutoHouse to kind of put a little note on the service invoice as to the reason why you're kind of doing something the way that you are. So it's not just, you know, some people kind of write notes and then, you know, kind of try to palm that off as official documentation, which is completely fine. But I don't think I think you'd be kind of wasting money to sort of split it in two.
I guess, you know, financially, I'm just thinking, you know, you spread the cost, right? Because,
that's
you know,
slightly different.
The rebuild of the steering rack, like my slight leak in the steering rack, it's going to be a reconditioned one. It's rebuilt.
Yep.
I think they quoted me $1,500 for that, Australian dollars, right?
Yep.
Then it's going to need when the steering rack's done, it's also going to need a wheel alignment as well.
Yes.
Because it pulls a bit to the right, which it kind of always has. But they said after the steering rack, normally you should do a wheel alignment as well. Okay, fair enough.
Okay,
so that's $2,000. Let's just call it $2,000. You know, and then you've got the annual service, which is probably $1,000 in Australia at AutoHouse. So that's under $1,000 actually. It's probably $700. So let's just say it's around 2.5. You know what I mean? 2.5 to 3. Let's just say it's 3. So that's $3,000 already. Now, the other thing that I want to replace, which, you know, listeners who have heard the podcast before will know my battery's not completely correct. I want, after sitting for this long on the battery on the trickle charger, I want to change the battery. I know it sounds like a waste of money, but I just want to do it in my head. I want to change the battery now. I've had 4 years out of that battery, and I just want to put the right battery in the car. Mm-hmm. So that's another 400, 300 or whatever it was, 350 I think he quoted me, which has probably gone up now. So that's that. And that's why I thought, you know, if I split the services and then do, you know, it also depends on what they recommend, Steve. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it has been sitting for that long, maybe they'll say, look, it's best if you do, you know, a fuller service. You know what I mean?
I think so. I think you'll be in the space of like, definitely you should have your brake fluid changed, because that's supposed to be a every second year kind of thing anyway.
Or maybe I should do the brakes. Maybe I should change the rotors and the pads there and then, and just do them all.
And I know, so yes, you're obviously, and you're prepared for this in your brain anyway, like for a fairly kind of hefty kind of bill, which is, you know, all kind of cool. But if I were in your shoes, I would just do it all in the one go. Also because I don't know how long you'll be sort of in Sydney for this time round, but ideally you just sort of want it sorted. So that kind of feeling of the car's kind of tip top for the time that you're in Sydney, so you can just kind of drive as much and as hard to your heart's content, not kind of worry about it, think about it. Because I think also if you if you have some bits, and I'm talking more psychologically because I'm not a mechanic, so I don't have enough knowledge to tell you what is more urgent than not. But I reckon just even more psychologically for you, just get it sorted. Get it sorted as early as you kind of can when you're back, or I can go and take it before you're back. So by the time you kind of come home and you're ready to kind of enjoy it, just enjoy it for the time that you're here.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking of, and I mentioned it before, I'm also thinking of probably getting the engine mounts changed, putting fresh ones in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether they're worn, but if they're the original ones, then it seems from everything I've been watching and reading that they would be pretty worn after, if it's 2006 and they haven't been changed.
Yeah, look, I guess that's a slightly different one too. I've actually only ever put factory standard kind of engine mounts in all of my cars, but I've read the same.
No, that's what I'm doing, factory standard.
Yeah, I've read the same sorts of things as you. Like, if you are upgrading, then definitely, you can do it now, kind of thing, because sounds like you'll get a reasonable performance difference out of it. But
no, I'm going to change them to OEM. I'm just going to get the OEM part. I'm not going to change it to anything else. Just a standard Porsche, but the original part. I'd just rather do it now than do it when they fail or if they start to get worse. Maybe it'll just make the car that little bit better. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I just peace of mind. I think it's okay to do it. I don't think it's a lot of money. I think in saying that, I think it's about $1,000. I think.
Yeah, so I think you're probably going to have like a few listeners who are more mechanically minded and more frugally minded, kind of shaking their headsets, kind of going, "Are you crazy?
Do it yourself.
Why are you spending all this money on stuff that doesn't necessarily kind of need to be done?" Because I kind of get your mindset. I know where you're kind of coming from.
It gets to a certain age. It gets to a certain age where the car's 15 years old that these things are going to fail. So do you wait till they fail, or do you preempt that and fix it now?
Just trying to think of some of the things, like call it engine mounts. If an engine mount fails on you, I don't think it's pretty rare that that's sort of like a catastrophic. It just kind of completely dies. And even if it does die, it doesn't render the car undrivable. You can still get it to the mechanic, sort of thing.
Yeah, but bearing in mind, Steve, sorry for interrupting, bearing in mind that I want to do a couple of long trips in the car, and I'm thinking at first I was thinking I would do these things afterwards. Now I'm thinking, why do them afterwards? Why not do them before so the car feels, perfect when you're doing these trips? And
that's semi what I meant too, because knowing you, like if you've kind of got something sort of niggling in your brain and it sort of holds back your enjoyment of the car, if you are kind of driving down Great Ocean Road in Victoria or anything like that, I would just get it sorted. So you kind of feel confident. I bet you there's nothing wrong with the car. I bet you come back, you take it to Autohouse. If you went the absolute bare minimum, yes, you should kind of change out all the fluids. I'm sure they would kind of check all the hosing to make sure that, like all the rubber bits haven't kind of dried out, like in terms of, coolant pipes and all that sort of stuff. If you sort of specifically ask them to kind of check it out because the car's been sitting for a couple of years.
Yeah, which I will.
I'm sure that they would be super diligent.
Yeah.
It might not be as catastrophic as you kind of think.
But, I'm kind of worrying. Some days I worry about it, and I start writing my list of all the things I want to do. I know it's getting up in there in dollars. I know that it's getting up there in dollars. And this doesn't include the cosmetic things. The thing I have to fix with the damage, and it doesn't include getting some PPF on the front. It doesn't include those things. But for me to get it, as much as that thing on the front annoys me, the damage.
The damage, yeah.
Yeah, I want to get all the mechanical things done first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that aesthetic thing will. Again, knowing you, every time you look at it, it's going to. It's going to kind of gnaw at you.
Yeah,
It's not like you can't drive on the car. And I think just, given your sort of circumstance, which is you've been away from the car for a very long time.
And I haven't spent any money.
You're gagging to drive the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So like the most enjoyment you're going to get out of it is not by looking at it. It's going to be by, getting out and sort of going for some kind of fun drives. Then get it to the point where you're comfortable with that, and spend what you feel like you want to spend.
I'm looking forward to see, but you're right. When I go to Autohouse and I know that they've gone through it and these are all the things and they're getting fixed, then I'll be like a sigh of relief. You know what I mean? It'd be like, okay, great.
Yeah, exactly.
It's done.
Yeah.
And then I go to the next thing. And then I don't have to worry about it. I won't have to worry about it all
Yeah.
summer in Australia. I can just drive it and enjoy it and meet up with people and
Exactly.
have fun, and we can go for these drives and everything's cool.
And I'm sure on the side you'll still kind of, have some of your leather bits installed and stuff like that, which will kind of bring you
I've got all those things to
same amount
install.
of joy and all of that kind of thing. So
Yep.
it'll be good. Like, I know it's a bit daunting. I know why you're sort of talking about it or why you're thinking about it as well. But ultimately, it just means that you're going to enjoy it. And again, because maybe some listeners don't sort of know your particular circumstance, unlike, me, where I can kind of walk down to the garage and kind of take my car out anytime I want, because you're overseas a lot of the time, it's about maximizing the time that you can enjoy with the car. So, like, if that means that psychologically you want it to kind of be in tip-top condition, so, like if you've kind of got a couple of months to kind of, fang the hell out of that thing, then just do it. Just do it, mate.
Yeah. I guess it's like anything, and it's like all, owner stories, priorities and things get in the way. And it's also,
Yeah, sure.
if the car was the only thing I had to worry about when we came back, it would be easy.
Yeah, of course.
And unfortunately, when you've been away for that
It's
long,
not.
it's not going to be just that.
No,
That's the problem.
you got a lot of housework to do, mate.
That's the problem. And we have, I'll tell you offline, but we have all the other stuff as well.
But if you want your car sorted before then, like, I can obviously take it, because I think the thing about your big long list of stuff to do is that's not like a one-day job. Your car's going to be in the workshop for a few days, for one thing. And the other thing, it might be to preempt. I haven't taken my car in for a little while, but I'm sort of wondering whether or not, or listening to Stephen's owner story about shocks. I wonder if getting certain parts, like whether, for example, if you were going to do your engine mounts, maybe that's a sort of easily kind of stocked part, but you might want to reach out and just kind of make sure that your car doesn't wind up sitting in the workshop waiting for parts to kind of come.
Yeah.
So line it up before you kind of have the car booked and all that.
Just onto that, you heard what I said to Stephen about the shocks how he got
Coney's versus Bilsteins.
Coney Sports.
Yeah.
I don't know why in my head I always feel Coney's are an air-cooled shock. Not for every Porsche. That most people have air-cooled, pick Coney's. They're the green ones, right? They're always on air-cooleds.
Yeah, I don't know. I know what you're saying.
Did you ever use them?
Coney's, would I or did I?
Did you?
Did I? No. I've always, whenever I've swapped out suspension on previous cars, I've always put Bilsteins in. But interestingly, sorry, slight tangent, there's a dude, what's his name? On YouTube, Zygreen, I think it was. Have you seen any of his videos?
No, I haven't.
He's a young Asian guy on YouTube, not a massive kind of following, just bought a 997.1, and he inherited PSS 9s on his car, and he doesn't like them, really interestingly. Bilsteins.
Oh, right. PSS 9s. Yeah, that's not what I was looking at. I forget what I was looking at. They're what's-the-names, though, aren't they? Coilovers.
Yes.
Yeah, they're coilovers. Yeah. I don't know. Suspension's another thing, because my bump stops are damaged too. My bump stops need changing on the front, which they said to me I didn't need to really do unless I go drive in potholes. But I don't know about that. I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah, look, that's up to you, kind of thing.
But apparently it's expensive change, just for the plastic.
Bump stops?
Well, the bump stop's only $20, $30 or something. It's cheap, but it's actually getting to it, and the labor cost is expensive.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So it's one of those stupid things where it costs nothing, but it's a lot of labor costs. Hey, Steve, talking about this, because we're going to run out of time.
It's okay.
You had that thing on our notes, as listeners know, we have notes where we sort of just jot down things. I've been a bit slack this week, but Steve put a few things down. How can you pick a good Indy mechanic? And I thought this was interesting because Steven's story was quite good, seeing the different people he used for different things. You know what I mean? He used Autohouse. He used the, what are they called? Suspension guy. What's his name?
Oh, East Coast.
East Coast. Yeah,
suspension.
East Coast. Who else did he use? So, and Steven's from Sydney, so that was good to hear that. And I've heard a lot of good things. I know that Craig, who was on an early owner stories, I hope this is still the case, Craig, I'm pretty sure it would be, P997.1, Craig, who's got the 997 in blue. He gets his car done at AutoWorks in Wyong. Wyong's the place where, you like how I said that? That's my Wyong accent coming out. That's where I grew. That's where it's true. It's weird. It never goes away. I was there from 10 to 17.
Right.
But that's where AutoWorks is. And I've heard a lot of good things about AutoWorks. Someone else told me they were really good, that I should look at them.
Yep.
For me, it's not really practical because, Wyong is an hour and a half, hour and 15, hour and a half from Sydney. I guess if you live closer to that area, it's good. I mean, it's great that
if you're on the Central Coast.
It's great that the Central Coast has a Porsche dealer.
Yep.
It's good to know if anything ever happens when I'm up there, when I'm visiting my family, that, there is a Porsche dealer reasonably close by. That's kind of cool. But a lot of people say it's good. But how do you pick? This is what your question, Steve's question was. And listeners, think about this while we're talking about this. How do you pick a good independent mechanic? And the things that come to mind for me, Steve, and I just briefly, this is, a lot of the times it's just word of mouth, right? It's just people telling you, go and see this guy, go and use this guy. Not necessarily on community forums or Porsche forums, but really other people, other friends or other people who have Porsches.
Yep.
I went to Autohouse because of you. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I didn't go to PR Technology. I didn't go to the other people in Sydney. I went to Autohouse because you said they were good.
Yep.
Then the other thing for me is like the owner of the business or the owners of the business, where did they come from? Have they worked at Porsche before? Have they worked at Ferrari before? Or did they work at, Hyundai or Kia? You know what I mean? Like, where is their experience? What else?
And more importantly, the physical kind of people working on your car. I mean, look, I guess it's going to sort of sound a little bit like dealer bashing, but the reason why I'm sort of pro independent mechanic is not really just a cost thing, because I think their labor rate sort of tends to be cheaper. Like if, they can fix a component on the car rather than just replacing it, which is sort of like what a dealer will do, then that's what will happen. But I sort of feel, at least back in the day as well, that in a Porsche dealership, if there's sort of like a lot sort of younger kind of guys working on your car that might not necessarily have experience with your 993 because it's an older car, or with something specialist like a 997 GT3 kind of thing, do you really want them sort of learning on your car? Or would you rather somebody who is tried and tested and has sort of seen, again, like a 997 GT3 over and over and over again?
Autohouse still have younger mechanics though, don't they? They still have younger mechanics. But then I think the more experienced mechanic, that's how you divvy out the work, isn't it?
And that's a terribly ageist thing to say, because it's the same with any industry. It's like, well, how do young people learn? Like, of course they've got to,
but it's experience.
They've got to get their hands dirty, but you need somebody kind of overseeing it.
It seems though, I think how I see it is that, independent Porsche specialists, the owners or a handful of the staff most of the time are older. And they're older because they've come from Porsche dealerships and they've broken out on their own. And they've taken other people with them from that, people who didn't want to be in the Porsche network in that respect, and they just want to be an independent and have more flexibility or whatever, or have their own business. So I think that's one side of it. You know what I mean? And I know, and I don't like to quote these things because I don't know the whole history, but I know that all the guys here in London, they go and a lot of the guys here go and see Flat Six Jack, and someone told me, I hope Jack's not listening and I'll get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure Jack worked at, I think Flat Cap Driver told me, Ajmal, that Jack used to work for Lamborghini. You know what I mean? And he's got the Porsche, he's a Porsche shop in London, outside of London, where, Nika Classic Series, Flat Cap Driver, PJ with the 356A, they all go and see him. You know what I mean? And it is word of mouth, but it is, personality. It's the personality of the people that own the shop. You know what I mean? I think that's also a big
also
thing. And those first
with,
interactions, you know what I mean? Those first interactions that you have when you go there, and how they talk to you, Steve, and how they are. Do you know what I mean? I never liked going to Audi service. I always found them really rude. You know what I mean? It used to drive me crazy going to Audi service. I hated it. I used to go to Scott's Audi in Hartaman, and I used to hate going there.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, because you sort of make me sort of ponder a mate who recently bought his GT3. I'm not going to name shops and names and all that sort of stuff, but I just reckon he's new to the sort of GT3 land. He kind of feels, I think it's fair to sort of say that because he used to have a Porsche, he had a 964, ideally, and he had a favoured shop, he would have been quite happy to take it back there. But then he also sort of felt like maybe that particular shop specialised in air-cooleds, not water-cooleds or GT3s specifically. So that's why he was sort of doing a little bit of, kind of hunting around to see what other kind of independent mechanics were out there. Now he kind of came across one where, well, I don't know whether he'd kind of go back or not. If I were in his shoes, to be honest, I wouldn't, given his most recent experience. But I'm not sort of saying that they're a bad shop, but I reckon the shop and the customer are out of sync in terms of, I think they're sort of recommending like really, really sort of particular fussy sort of stuff that maybe sort of like somebody who had owned the car a lot longer, or somebody who's like a dead set track rat.
Yeah.
Recommending kind of work for that, which didn't necessarily sync up with my mate's kind of point of view. And I think you'd sort of, just observationally, you sort of need to build the rapport before you start telling people to kind of do really, really kind of crazy finicky stuff.
This was the suspension, right?
Yeah. Partly. More than that. But yes, that was probably the one.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I mean,
this is why you stick, this is why if you go to someone, you usually stick with them. I think, wasn't it Stephen this week? And I know other people have said this as well. I think he took his 996 Cabriolet. He said he took it to Porsche to get it fully checked over when he first bought it. And I understand that, you know what I mean? Like my car was fully checked over by Porsche, remember? It was actually done from Porsche Sydney when I bought it off, what's her name? Scuderia. But it kind of makes sense that, you know what I mean? You take it there. I know a lot of other owners prefer to go straight to the dealer, even though the car isn't in warranty. Sure. They just like the dealer experience, and they like to build the relationship just in case other cars come in or other opportunities happen. Yeah. So that all makes sense.
And I agree with that. I'm not just because I'm sort of like an old, I'd sort of argue I'm an old friend of the Auto House kind of crew. I've known them for a very, very long time because I've had a few cars and they've looked after me, and I've sort of, tried to help them with what I can. But I'm not sort of saying that all dealers are bad. Like if you manage to build a good relationship with a dealer, then by all means, like keep sending your kind of car there. But maybe also the other kind of catch to that is, in my experience, when I have taken my car to dealerships, there's always like a new sort of service manager, and a service manager is potentially kind of different from the actual kind of mechanic that's actually wrenching on your car. So
and I don't think just because you have a good relationship with the service department, you are necessarily going to get your allocation on your new 992 GT3 Touring. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that. Yeah, and I know you don't have a relationship with Porsche South Sydney, for example, Sydney South. No. But you have a relationship with the parts department, right? You have a relationship with the person in there.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. So that works well. So you know if you want a part, you can just go and do it. But yeah, this is the thing. The relationship you have with the Porsche dealer is if you buy multiple 911s from them, to the point where they will give you an allocation. So and even that is getting harder and harder because more and more people are buying Porsches, and the allocation is less and less. Yeah.
So to answer that kind of question, I think a big part of it is obviously building trust and sort of like your indie mechanic kind of realizing how you use your car and all of that sort of stuff. But, like there were kind of classic cues for me, like, Grant said it to me, said it to you, which is if you don't want to change your battery, you don't need to change your battery. Like the car's still going to function. Or, like why don't you wait for your brake pad sensor to kind of go off before you change your brakes, given that there's probably still like another 300 or 400 kilometers in it.
And that was enough for
your
me.
Kind of usage might kind of keep you going for another 6 months. Like all of that sort of stuff. You might not necessarily get that from somebody who's not necessarily looking after your interests and just wanting to turn the job over or to kind of make money kind of quickly, which is understandable. Everybody's running a business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was enough for me with Auto House. Do you know what I mean? That was enough for me that, I'm not going to go anywhere else. I'm happy to use them. Do you know what I mean? I won't mention names, but the two service advisors there, the two guys, I get on with both of them, and they're both, they listen and everything's fine. There was a problem last time when I was there, and it was sorted out reasonably quickly. And like you said, every time I'm not obviously not a friend of Grant's like you are, but and he wouldn't know who I was. But the fact that Well, he wouldn't remember who I was. But the fact is that any time when I'm talking to them and something comes up and he's behind the back, he'll interject and he'll say, no, you don't need to do that. You don't really need to do that. You don't need to do this, But that's what I like about it. You know what I mean? The battery thing, the brake thing. There was other things too that they said, don't worry about that. Wait till it happens. And that's okay. You don't have to change that. It's all right. You know what I mean? So they're not out to take all your
which
money.
is funny.
And they're out for, because they know they want you to come back. And those little things make you come back,
Yeah, I think so. Look, nobody's perfect. We're all kind of humans. Everybody's definitely running a business and people kind of make mistakes. So I can't hand on heart sort of say like I've had 100% perfect kind of service out of Autohouse, and, they're friends. I think very highly of them. And I've heard other people kind of say otherwise, but sometimes, you kind of go to a doctor and they don't diagnose things like first go kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's just part of the process. I think
depends on the day.
Sometimes I think also people have very, very, very high expectations, which doesn't help in terms of customers, not kind of service shops. So
we're just people, you know what I mean? Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone we all miss things. You forget things. It just happens. But, if you remind them,
I make mistakes all the time.
Yeah, and if you remind them of that, and you you and I are similar in a way. We always want to. I always have to make sure that I say it twice to make sure they realize that that's what I want. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I always double check. I'm always like, it's been embedded into my head for years from a very early boss. Just double check. Even if you're sure, just double check. And I continue to do that today.
Tend to put things in writing or just check like what is kind of written down in terms of the brief, because I know for what I do, it's kind of crucial. What I do is a very subjective kind of thing, but so if a client briefs me really poorly, that can send me down a rabbit hole that's going to can waste days kind of thing. So that's kind of that's in my brain in terms of whenever I kind of ask somebody to do some work for me, it's like brief them properly, make sure they know what you kind of want and why you want it. And it sort of reduces the risk of kind of having something kind of go wrong.
Yeah, true. And look, there's a lot of people that listen to the podcast that do their own servicing. Amir from Air Cooled that was on Previous Owner's Story. Other people do, things, to the cars, to their Boxsters. I know people are working on their cars as well as getting service done. But whatever you do, I think the most important thing, Steve, is you regularly service your 911 or your Porsche. You don't just forget about it. It is the health of the car. It needs to be done. And I guess you just have to be comfortable with whoever you're using. Financially, you know what I mean? Emotionally, I guess. That's what it's all about. Let's end it. That's it.
Yeah, cool. All good. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, man. Have a good week. Hopefully it gets a bit easier. Hope stressful Tuesday is completely over.
Yep. Thanks, mate. All right. We'll talk soon.
Good.
I hope you feel better.
Cheers,
and I hope Ava feels better.
Thanks, man.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. My name is Michael Barth. That was Steve. That's about it for today. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.